My guest this week is Nancy Bo Flood, a child psychologist and counselor, and the author of several children's books. Now, her brand new book, Walking Grandma Home, a story of grief, hope, and healing, tells the touching and relatable story about a young boy's grief to help 4 to 8-year-olds understand loss and how to process their own emotions. So thank you for this resource, Nancy, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for having me here.
Now, you never forget the first time that someone you care about dies. It really shapes us, and how we handle it obviously does too. Why did you feel like it was important to write this story?
I felt it was important because when I was a child, and feeling back and looking back, when I was a child, when I was 7, my 5-year-old sister died very suddenly. And there were no resources for parents at that time. And so I was lost in my own grief. But for a child, it's not only grief, it's lots of different feelings. At a time when their own parents are also lost to them in their own grieving. So it's a very scary time, but it's also a time when, as a child, and I think this is quite universal, where I felt like I could have prevented that. Somehow there was guilt about not preventing my sister's death, even though there was absolutely no way. But that doesn't make any difference. Children have their own beliefs, systems like that. We believe in Santa Claus. We believe in a lot of things that, oh yeah, that can't possibly happen. So, and then recently my mom died, and we finally talked about my sister's death. So all those many years in silence too. And it was a tough thing. There was the unknown, message to children at that time in my life. We don't talk about it. We don't even say her name. She's lost to us. And there you are as a child, like, I don't understand. And I'm also scared, who's going to die next? So there's many questions and many feelings. And what I felt is really important for children anywhere and everywhere, to have adults that they can ask questions and express and understand what's going on, at least not be left out, but be part of a part of what's happening to the family.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry about the recent passing of your mom. When the young boy Lee in the book finally learns that he's saying that kind of goodbye to his grandma, he actually starts listing things that she enjoyed and memories that she shared. So what is the motivation here?
Is a way of honoring a person. I've spent a number of years on the Navajo reservation and Navajo Nation, and there's a saying of theirs is that we honor our grandparents by telling their stories. And I think and this is oftentimes what does happen at a celebration of someone's life at a funeral, is that we tell stories about them, the ones that the things that made us laugh, the things that frustrated us. Part of my own heritage is Italian, and there's always this big gathering where stories are told, and there's a way of keeping that love and keeping that presence alive in our own hearts, in our own life, and honoring a person as well. I just received this very morning a letter from an old friend whose son had died some time ago, and this summer, and she was saying how important it was for his children, her grandchildren, to make booklets, to draw pictures, to tell stories, what they loved about their father, favorite things, funny things that was their father, and. It helps us to grieve. It helps us to grieve and heal and laugh. And laughter is very healing. Funny thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that you actually mentioned the booklet and some of these actual activities that kids can do to process their own grief. And you actually make some suggestions at the end of the book, which I really appreciate. Some examples there that I'm sure you've also pulled from your counseling experience.
Yes, in fact, I find that children and adults are eager to make those kind of memory books or honoring a person, and it's something again to hold on to, but it's something to share. And so there's there's several different activities, remembering stories, and I tried in Walking Grandma Home. There is that moment too where the child is remembering a story that Grandma told about her tooth and about the rooster and about, then we finally just ate that rooster, and that we can laugh about it. And that also gives us the hope that in this journey of grieving, that there will be a time we can begin to remember without so much pain, and so much sorrow, but also with the laughter and the warmth of the, remembering the love, the special cookies she made, whatever. But and especially that those activities are done, as part with someone else in the family, because it's pulling together. We're all in this together, and we can help each other walk this path.
The worst thing is to grieve alone.
Yes.
Now I know. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, that for a child to be left out, if the doors are closed and people are whispering behind the doors, not only are you left out because that I did something wrong, or there's something wrong with why? What are they saying? And then also the fears loom for all of us. We know if we don't understand something, it's the unknown that makes us more scared than anything. Like, maybe there is a monster under the bed, because nobody is telling me what's going on. And children have their fears, like, somebody else is going to die, or what awful thing is going to happen next. So including the child and having times and places where children can ask questions, but also be part, that they're part of the family, and even giving them little tasks to do to be, helpful, so they feel like, yes, I'm still part of this family, and my family is still functioning.
Yeah. Wow. Well, as we wrap up, often people know this, that often when a child is grieving, the adult, the parent, the caregiver is grieving too. So would you mind just speaking to a parent who may be listening, and maybe there's an aging grandparent, or they're experiencing a recent death? I'll leave it kind of an open-ended question for you. What is important for adults to remember when helping a child cope?
Good, excellent question. Thank you. One is to be honest about, right now I'm sad, or right now it's hard, but I won't be sad forever. So even giving the sense of time, someone did give, and I think it was my grandmother at the time, that right now, yes, your mom is too sad to hold you or tell you stories or read books like she did, but it's a journey, and soon it will be better. And so that one is a sense of time, and that there's healing happening in time, and the other is sometimes I can talk about this and sometimes I can't. But inviting a child to come to me, even if it's hard for me to talk about it. And it's okay if I cry. Mm-hmm. Crying is helpful. Crying is part of the healing. So it's okay. I remember not wanting to make my mom cry. And so it was like being so shut down in terms of asking any questions, that to see that sad look on her face, or to see the tears fall. And I wish I'd been given permission to say, it's okay to cry. Let's cry together. We miss your sister. We miss the way she, and I know that, like you said, at the same time, everyone in the family is grieving. So even saying that to a child, that yes, we are sad too. And sometimes it's hard for us to answer, but we want you to ask the questions, or we want you to come near. And sometimes we just sit together and think about this.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I just so appreciate, first of all, the evidence that you are showing that even a 7-year-old has such formative memories when losing a loved one. So it really is important to address it the right way. And I love, too, that as a research psychologist who studied brain development, and your experience in counseling and teaching, and you are explaining to parents that kids have different emotions and they grieve in different ways. I think this is such a great book. I also appreciate that you didn't over spiritualize it. It's not about heaven. It's not a big spiritual book. It's relatable and practical. So again, really, really appreciate this book. It's called Walking Grandma Home, A Story of Grief, Hope, and Healing. Author Nancy Bow Flood. Nancy, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, I appreciate this opportunity because I have been surprised. The book was just launched yesterday, and I'm already receiving, emails from people. And like you said, that I've been especially surprised how others are sharing. In the email, I remember when whoever died, when I was only 5 or even 3, and it is such a profound experience as a child because it does suddenly to experience someone's death is that they don't come back in the skin, so it is a profound experience for a child, and to be able to share it with someone is such a gift to that child.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the first loss. Like, I was in elementary school, and it was I had a friend over, and his mom came to the house. He lived in the neighborhood, and she had said that his dad had gotten in a car accident. And I remember, I don't know, 11, 10, I don't remember how old I was exactly, but I do remember waking up in the middle of the night and crying and saying to my dad, it's not fair, it's not fair. And we were not Christians, we were not believers at the time. And my dad had just said, life isn't always fair. And I think that was his way of just saying, I relate, like, I get it. You're absolutely right. You're allowed to feel that way. And I'll never forget that. It wasn't like it was even someone close to me. It was just that I witnessed the pain that this friend had been through, and we don't ever want to see our loved ones and people we care about hurting. So yeah, it's a really tricky thing to navigate. So yeah, you're bringing your experience to it. So I love that.
Yes. Oh, well, thank you for sharing that too, because, I think, we don't want our children to hurt, we don't want them to feel pain. So sometimes we want to downplay, like, oh, this will be better, or this, but to just let a child express, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. No, it's not fair. You're right. But it is.
And some kids, I guess you mentioned this too, and sorry, I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I know some kids will act out. And that's probably a really hard thing too for parents to navigate, because they are now losing control. And like, what would you say to that? Like, what does a parent do when a kid is acting out in that way?
Well, in the end, I will be doing some what I would call mini workshops, because one thing I do want to emphasize is that every child has their own way of expressing, and some get silent, and some get ornery and acting out, and that it's a way of showing grief. It's a way of, and it's a tough way, because they're really pushing adults away when they do that. And one of the things they're asking for is really like, who's in control here? Like, are my parents still able to, be in charge? Make this world safe.
Yes, yeah.
And it's so scary for. And this happens oftentimes too when parents divorce. Is like the kid gets he pushes every limit because they want it. They're really asking, show me that you're really in control. Show me that you're really still my parent. In the terms of making the world safe for me, making me safe for me.
Yeah, yeah. Where's the stability? Are you still the parent?
Exactly. You're still strong, right? You're still in charge, right? Because I don't want to be in charge. That's too scary. And yet it's the hardest kind of behavior to work with, because you want to just, make it stop. And it makes you angry, makes you scared as a parent, and sometimes it happens at school, and then the kid's getting in trouble at school, and a parent who's already overwhelmed with grief is like, oh no, now I have this other problem to, and what's happening to my child. But to understand, yes, that's often part of grieving. Even like sort of the steps of grieving is, one is being angry. This is, why did this happen? Or even, why did you leave me? Why did you do this to me? Why did the world do this to me? So a child feels those feelings too, just angry.
Is there much of this that can be like much of what you're talking about in the book, or even what we're talking about right now, that can be applied to adults who are grieving?
Oh gosh, yes. And because everyone does have their, and not only everyone has their own way of dealing with grief, but it also changes. Like sometimes we're sad and we want to just be a turtle and, go to our safe closet, wherever that is. And then sometimes it's in being busy, and oftentimes it's interesting with men. It's often like being busy. All of a sudden, there's lots of work to do at the office, or distractions. And then the child or the spouse is feeling, like, that person's kind of left me in their own busyness. Or I have parents often would say, my husband doesn't really care because he's just so busy doing his work and not even understanding that's a way of dealing with this thing that's happened. But also just being plain ornery, and we're often orneriest with the people we love the most, right? We come home and we're like, it's a safe place, hopefully, to be home. But yes, sometimes it's adults who then they get really angry. I'm going to sue that doctor, or I'm going to, so all of those different expressions of grieving that we often ourselves don't understand. Why am I behaving this way? Why am I being so nasty? And it helps to it's not just I'm a bad person. I'm not just a bad kid, actually. Yeah.
This is just how I'm reacting. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is so good, Nancy. Do you have a website where you are gonna, like, when you do your workshops, or you have some of this Q&A, how to deal with things? Is there somewhere that we can actually direct our listeners to?
Well, good. That's a good idea. Yes, I have a website, so it's nancyboflood.com, and I have been putting up some things, and I'll be putting up more things. One of the things is there is a link to an activity booklet. So that parents can just download it, print it out. It's free, it's complimentary, and then they can do those things with the children. But it'll be as good for me to here's some typical questions from parents, and here's my response to that, just like we're doing right now. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the extra time with you. I could pick your brain forever on this, and I know the day will come. Like, my kids are 1 and 3. And the day will come where they'll lose their grandparents, and I don't even like thinking about it. But the day will come when we'll have to have that conversation. So I'm thankful that there's a resource like this. Look at me getting emotional. I'm thankful that there's a resource like this. So thank you for letting me pick your brain a little extra more on this one.
Oh, yes. And thank you for this wonderful interview. It was very meaningful. Thank you.